Aztecs and the ancient Mexican peoples wrote their books in bark paper. We find this type of material still being produced in the state of Guerrero in Mexico. It's very much painted in the traditional style, hand-painted. These manuscripts were called codices, and we have 14 pre-Columbian codices nowadays. We have another excellent example called Codex Mendocino or Codex Mendoza. This manuscript was first put together by the first viceroy of New Spain, Don Antonio de Mendoza, in the colonial period. It's particularly important because it illustrates three aspects of Mexican history. The first section deals with the history of the Aztec rulers, from the first Aztec ruler to the last. The second section deals with the tribute, how tribute was paid to the Aztecs, how much, how often, and in what form. The third section of the manuscript deals with aspects of education for the children. You will find that the parents were scolding the children, sometimes bringing them close to a fire of chilies, so that the children inhale the chili smell and got a bit of a cough. Sometimes the Aztecs forced the children to sleep outside, to sleep in mud, in wet mud. There are other aspects as well, as for instance, how many tortillas were children allowed to eat a day, depending on the age. The boys were usually trained the arts or the crafts of the father, while the girls stayed with mother at home. Sometimes the girls were taught how to cook, how to weave, and this codex is particularly useful to reconstruct how the Aztecs lived, how they brought the new babies home, the function of the midwife, what they did when a baby was born, how they announced the birth of a baby boy or a baby girl.
The Aztec rulers of Tenochtitlan became part of a triple alliance with rulers of nearby states. Nezahualcoyotl was a great ruler of neighboring Texcoco, who ruled from 1418 to 1472. He was contemporary with the Aztec ruler Moctezuma. He favored law, engineering, and the arts, and made Texcoco the seat of the highest court and the center of artistic activity. He encouraged the construction of an extensive system of aqueducts to bring water from mountain springs to the towns, and agricultural terraces of the foothills. Nezahualcoyotl's great palace is not visible nowadays, but his pleasure gardens on the nearby hill of Texcoco offer traces from the past. The hill once stood within the view of the lake, and though the water has retreated, the view remains impressive. Here, in the 1430s, Nezahualcoyotl collected a zoo of strange animals, perhaps the first in the New World, and a garden of unusual plants. An aqueduct carried water from the mountains into a reservoir ornamented with bas-reliefs, and from there it flowed by streams and canals all over the garden, filling the lakes and the bathing pool cut into the living rock. He built elaborate stairways in rock. Sitting in Nezahualcoyotl's stone throne on the hilltop, one gets a magnificent view of his royal vantage. The king must have watched the traffic of the fishing boats below him, though now the lake has given way to farms, as he listened to the sounds of crowing roosters and birdsong. The remains of the basins can be seen, but there are no waterfalls, bird cages, and flower beds, which gave the king such delight. An Aztec water system can still be seen at Xochimilco, which in Nahuatl means place of the fields of flowers. Today it is a bustling tourist attraction where vendors display their goods from brightly colored barges, much as they did in yesteryears. One of the most important forms of cultivation in the Valley of Mexico was Chinampa agriculture, a form of intensive cultivation on segments of land artificially constructed in lakes. Properly maintained, they can produce several crops a year and will remain fertile for centuries without having to lie fallow.